Imagine a world where European conquistadors never overwhelmed empires with cannons. Where armored knights still ruled the battlefield, their gleaming plate a testament to personal might, not a vulnerable target for a distant, unseen shot. Imagine a global dominance not decided by the thunderous boom of a firearm, but by different, older forms of power. What if the most transformative and destructive invention in history, gunpowder, remained a closely guarded secret of ancient China for centuries? For nearly 1,000 years, from its accidental discovery by alchemists in the 9th century, China was the sole custodian of this volatile marvel. It transformed warfare from the Song dynasty onwards, giving rise to fire arrows, bombs, and rudimentary hand cannons. If this knowledge had remained confined within the Middle Kingdom, China's imperial ambitions, or perhaps its defensive capabilities, would be vastly different. The Mongol hordes, infamous for their seemingly unstoppable cavalry, might have found their conquests far more challenging, even impossible, against Chinese fortifications bristling with secret fire weapons and explosive projectiles. China could have chosen to dominate its neighbors more decisively, establishing a vast, unchallengeable empire across much of Asia, secure in its unmatched technological superiority. Or, perhaps, it would have further retreated into isolation, viewing the outside world as less of a threat, its Middle Kingdom philosophy reinforced by an unshakable military advantage that no other civilization could hope to match for centuries. Now, cast your mind westward. Europe in the 14th, 15th, and 16th centuries was a crucible of conflict and change. Without gunpowder, the very face of European warfare would be unrecognizable. The age of heavy plate armor, the devastating English longbow, and the meticulously trained Swiss pikemen would endure as the pinnacles of military technology. Sieges would remain long, arduous affairs, relying on massive trebuchets, sappers digging tunnels, and sheer brute force to breach walls, not the destructive power of cannon fire. Feudal lords and their formidable stone castles, designed against traditional siege engines and cavalry charges, would retain their strategic importance for centuries longer, preventing the easy consolidation of power into larger nation-states. The professional standing armies we associate with early modern Europe, often built around disciplined firearm use, would struggle to emerge. Warfare would remain more localized, more personal, and perhaps, ironically, even more brutal in close quarters. The consequences for global exploration and conquest are perhaps the most profound. Consider the Spanish conquistadors. Their small bands, armed with steel swords, terrifying mastiffs, and crucially, muskets and cannons, shattered vast indigenous empires in the Americas. Without firearms, their technological advantage would be severely diminished. Indigenous armies, vastly outnumbering the Europeans, might have held their ground, or even driven the invaders back into the sea. The sophisticated Aztec and Inca empires, with their complex organization, immense populations, and fierce warriors, would not have fallen so readily to a handful of men. The subsequent scramble for Africa would unfold entirely differently. European powers, lacking the overwhelming firepower that allowed them to project dominance across continents and subdue local resistance, would find their deep territorial expansion severely curtailed. Coastal trading posts might still be established, but widespread colonization would be a far more dangerous, costly, and perhaps impossible proposition. This leads to a dramatically different world order. Empires like the Ottoman and Mughal, which eventually adopted and mastered gunpowder technology, would also be forced to adapt their military strategies. Perhaps they would develop more advanced forms of siege engines, focus even more on elite cavalry, or innovate in logistics and supply chains to maintain large armies. Naval power, too, would be utterly transformed. Ships might still carry ballistas and trebuchets, but the devastating broadside cannon would never exist. Naval battles would revert to ramming, boarding actions, and the use of fire ships. The sheer scale of global trade might be less dominated by heavily armed European merchant fleets. The balance of power would be far more diffuse, with no single region achieving overwhelming military superiority through one technological leap. Perhaps new empires, focusing on unique forms of warfare, diplomacy, or economic strength, would rise in regions less impacted by external gunpowder-based threats. Imagine the resilience of various African kingdoms or Native American nations, free from the overwhelming military might of European colonizers. The secret of gunpowder, a volatile blend of saltpeter, charcoal, and sulfur, shaped our world in ways almost unimaginable. Its absence would have left us with a tapestry of civilizations woven with different threads, wars fought with different rules, and a map of the world drawn by different hands. It's a stark reminder of how a single invention, a single secret, can echo through centuries, fundamentally altering the course of human destiny, pushing humanity down a profoundly different historical pathway. What do you think would be the single biggest change in a world without Chinese gunpowder? Would we be more peaceful, or just find new ways to fight? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this thought experiment as fascinating as we did, be sure to like this video and subscribe to Alternate History and Mythology @IFS for more journeys into the roads not taken.